My own little contribution.
Pop that under your tongue for me, please, and hold it for a couple of seconds. Oh, within range. That's great.
730 has been granted exclusive access inside clinical research company Linear's COVID vaccine trial and has been following the progress of participants like Rochelle Callick since June.
Oh yes, thank you. We'll take some blood samples and then do the second dosage, and then it'll be the same procedure as the first time around. And this will be the second and final time that we do the dosing.
And everything's been going okay for you so far on the trial?
Yeah, everything's been fine. I haven't had any symptoms or new medications or anything. People are generally pretty curious, but their reaction has actually been quite good. My sister's over in Melbourne, so she's being affected by the lockdown. I'll come back. The search for a vaccine is one of the most important things that we need to turn our resources to right now.
The trial vaccine was developed by Chinese company Clover Biopharmaceuticals.
Although you do have good veins, so makes it easy.
Thank you.
Makes it very easy.
I didn't know good veins was a thing.
The next step is to test it on an older group of 55 to 75-year-olds.
Is your arm feeling okay? Is it a bit numb?
Yeah, no, it's fine, thank you.
This is a really important milestone for the trial. We are now vaccinating an older population. Why is that important? As you naturally age, your immune system tends to decline. So it's extremely important to be able to show that a vaccine is safe and effective in an older population.
Didn't even feel it.
That's good. That's what I like to hear.
Key things that we're looking at is safety and tolerability of the vaccination.
In South Australia, Flinders University is also testing a potential vaccine on an older cohort and preparing to enter Phase 2. US company Novavax has entered Phase 2 trials in Melbourne, Brisbane and Canberra, but the University of Queensland's trial has garnered the most attention, with the backing of the federal government and global experts.
No doubt it's been a crazy year. The timelines we've been working with are nothing like we've ever experienced before.
Early results indicate the UQ vaccine is safe and likely to provide protection against the virus.
There is no guarantee of success, but I think if one had to be confident, one could be confident of this one.
Professor Paul Young doesn't think a vaccine will be available before mid-next year, though.
I think the likelihood of any vaccine being deployed before Christmas is unlikely. It's dangerous to push too hard. I know that there is an urgency and there is a desire to get something out there more quickly than perhaps it could do, but we are accelerating this as fast as possible.
The federal government has tipped a vaccine from the University of Oxford as a potential winner.
I think the government's done the right thing, putting its faith behind a number of different vaccines. I've said right from the very start that this won't be a race where there will be one winning vaccine. It's a race by all of us in vaccine development to beat the virus. And I suspect that in the end, what we will need are multiple vaccines.
Religious groups have raised ethical concerns about the Oxford vaccine because scientists have used a cell line derived from a fetus in its development.
I can only say this has been standard practice for a long time.
Neither Clover nor UQ's vaccine contain those cell lines. Gavin Grobler doesn't know if the vaccine he's trialling will work, but he's still willing to give it a shot.
One day when a vaccine's found, it doesn't necessarily have to be our one, but it would be really nice, I think. For society and humans, we're all completely stuck. This thing has put everybody onto their knees.
And 7:30 is looking into contact tracing in New South Wales and Victoria. If you have a direct experience that you're willing to share, please drop us a line at 7.30@abc.net.au. For years, Australia's fruit and vegetables have been picked by migrant workers and backpackers travelling the country. That was before coronavirus. Now a massive labour shortage looms and the consequences could hit every household. This report from Angelique Donnellan and producer Alex McDonald.
Well, times are really quite tough for the strawberry industry at the moment. Jamie Michael has been growing strawberries for about a decade. This year's been one of the toughest for his business. A quarter of his fruit will be left to rot because he can't get enough pickers.
In peak season, we would have around 300 seasonal workers doing the fruit picking and packing. At the moment, we have 140. And just for us in unpicked fruit, we're talking about $1.5 to $2 million worth. Now, if you extrapolate that across the industry, it would be 15 to 20 times that. And to not be able to get it off the plant at the last step, it's heartbreaking.
Jamie relies on backpackers, but many have headed home due to the pandemic. Samantha Peacock is also leaving soon due to the age limit on her working visa. She's about to turn 31, so her time in Australia is up.
I'm from America. I've been on the strawberry farm for 2 seasons now. I really enjoy it, and I'd stay longer, but it's that thing that the visa runs out and I don't have much of an option to stay longer. But if I did, I'd definitely stay longer.
In March, we extended those working holiday makers, the backpackers, to be able to stay another 12 months if they worked in agriculture, health or aged care. And so those that hit the age limit is another cohort that we're going to have to look at because each one of them are precious.
It's estimated about 40,000 workers are needed to pick fruit and vegetables this spring and summer.
Our current estimate is that we have approximately half the number of people we need to get all that produce picked.
The impact of that shortage may soon be felt at the supermarket.
Many viewers will remember price spikes in the price of bananas after a cyclone up north. It will be that sort of thing, or potentially worse.
I don't think we should get into a panic mode about where prices may end up. I think that wouldn't be healthy.
While playing down any speculation about price rises, the federal government does recognise the labour shortage is a huge problem. 160 workers have flown in from Vanuatu to pick mangoes in the top end, and workers from other Pacific nations are being sought.
We want to make sure that we're a good neighbour to them. It's a good way for Australia to do that. We believe there'll be around 1,000 to 4,000 that will probably come.
What we're doing is reverting back to the lazy practices of old that says, let's just find workers from overseas to get them to come in on temporary short-term contracts.
Apple, pear and cherry growers are all feeling anxious about the upcoming season a few months away. For farmers, the grain harvest and shearing season is just around the corner.
Since COVID, since March, we've seen our wool price decrease by roughly 40%. It's still declining. The future for wool growers is quite bleak, really.
Fifth-generation wool grower Andrew Laidlaw says both state and international border restrictions are causing problems. The wool industry has depended on Kiwi shearers for decades, but the difficulties of travel and quarantine have stopped many coming.
I'm quite concerned about not getting enough shearers for this upcoming season. If the sheep aren't shorn on time, the wool becomes too long. That can devalue the product.
We're going to be anywhere from 10 to 15 shearers down on what we normally have. We'd love to see people that are either on the job seeker, job keeper, on the dole and all that, come out here, get into it, have a crack.
The labour shortage has reignited debate about getting more Australians onto farms. Unions say it's time wages were lifted.
We think it's a perfect opportunity to hit reset on the working holiday visa, which has grown into an addiction for the industry, where we've seen some of the worst cases of exploitation in the labour market. What we want to see is opportunities provided for the 1 million plus Australians that are out of work.
You've got to understand that invariably this is work many Australians don't want to do. There's a suite of measures that I'm looking at, and that's around looking at our university students and trying to look at incentives for them through the youth allowance to get them out and, in fact, travelling the country, making a quid during the summer to go back to uni with dollars in their pockets. Then we're also looking at incentives for those that are unemployed.
Hey, how are you?
Jamie Michael says he wants to hire Australians, but the JobKeeper and JobSeeker boosts mean there's little incentive to pick strawberries.
Hey, how you going? The reality is if you can sit at home and earn your $750 a week compared to coming out to a farm and earning similar money, maybe a little bit more, bending over in the sun or the rain all day, I mean, I think I know which one I would choose.
Right now, Jamie can't see a fix for his labour woes.
I'm sure we don't all want to be eating frozen veggies and canned soup, fast forward 6 months. So, the fresh produce industry really needs something to be done.
Tonight, we continue our series profiling prominent and emerging young Indigenous leaders. After packing her bags and moving her young family to the UK to study at Cambridge University, Leela Smith now helps other young Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people dream big and design their own futures. This series is produced by Dan Conifer and Laura Francis. And a warning to Indigenous viewers, this story contains images of people who have died.
For the first time, Australia has recognised the legal existence of...
As Prime Minister of Australia, I am sorry.
My name is Leela Smith. I'm a Wiradjuri woman from central New South Wales and I grew up in Ngunnawal and Ngambri country in Canberra. I'm the Deputy CEO of the Aurora Education Foundation. In the 90s, growing up as a young Aboriginal person was in many ways a fantastic time. We had all of these networks and organisations and community events and spaces for young Aboriginal people and Aboriginal communities. And it was really thriving in a lot of ways. But in another way, what was also normal was that I felt like I needed to be removed from mainstream systems in order to have my culture celebrated or to learn more about my culture. That had to happen outside school. After I finished high school, I went to the Australian National University, and with the support of the Indigenous Centre there, I really thrived. Under the environment where Indigenous excellence and cultural strength was really celebrated. I graduated with first class honours from ANU and then went on to Cambridge, where I did a Masters of Public Policy with the support of a Charlie Perkins Scholarship. In my current role as Deputy CEO of Aurora, it's really exciting because it's almost like I have come full circle. Aurora administers the Charlie Perkins Scholarships, which was a scholarship that enabled me to get where I am today, really. So we guide, we inspire, we inform, and that is true qualities of leadership in a way. The qualities that I think are really important for young Indigenous leaders today is an understanding of the importance of family support, the importance of individual champions, but also the importance of building systems of support and leadership for younger generations that are going to come after us as well.
If we can redefine the way that we think about Indigenous students, that is really powerful.
Last year I gave a TED Talk, and my aim with that was to really encourage Australians to think about the way that we talk about Indigenous students. And the fact that so often it's about failure, dropout rates, non-attendance. And what would happen if we flipped that narrative and we talked about success, graduation, thriving within education systems. When I was at high school, I